Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 5th to Thursday the 15th of September 2022. It's been a long time, but I'm glad you've stuck with us, and thank you for returning and watching or listening to our podcast. My name is Alex, and as always, I cannot do this roundup of EastEnders on my own, so I might as well do it with Rob. Hello Rob, how are you?
Hello, Alex. I'm very well. Oh, I've missed you. I've missed our listeners and viewers. Oh, it's been nice. But what a week for us not to do the podcast, honestly.
Hasn't it
so much has happened. So you've moved house. Viewers may notice a slight change in background for Alex. He's got kind of quite grand wallpaper. So imagine, since we did this, since we last did a podcast, you lived in a different place. We had a queen. And we had a different prime minister. Quite a lot. We go away for 5 minutes and all hell breaks loose.
I know. It's the equivalent of when you leave work on the 31st of December and you say, see you next year. And then you go into work the next couple of days later. So it's the equivalent of that, I feel like. So we should have...
It's all gone crazy in the world since we last did this. And yet here we are. Reliable things. Lots has happened in the past 2 weeks. Alex has moved house. I had my first ever driving lesson today.
He did.
A slight adrenaline rush at the moment. I'm like Alex when he's had a coffee drink. I'm quite kind of like, I'm buzzing.
Well,
I'm ready.
Do you know what else, Rob? Pumpkin spice latte season.
Yes, he's on that. He's on his 7th in the
capitalist dream. That's me. I'm a capitalist dream.
You're a walking hypocrite. You should hate all this kind of thing. The way you've
said this to me before, and you're absolutely right. I should.
I will say it again.
I should, but I don't.
So, I mean, please, listeners and viewers, if you have advice about driving lessons and all that kind of thing, and how your experiences with driving lessons, please do leave them in the comment section, because I'm quite excited. I loved it. I've got another lesson next week. So if you're in the Lincolnshire area, I advise you stay off the roads for the next 6 months, because I might come across you. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So, Alex, we have much to discuss in terms of Walford and EastEnders. Lots and lots and lots to discuss. And Alex has got a gimmick for this week. And I can guarantee it'll be this week only, because you'll forget by next week. But explain the gimmick for this week, Alex.
Well, basically, normally at the top of the show, I'm not that pleased, to be fair, because it's just showing laziness. At the top of the show, before we start recording, Rob and I normally sit down and we have a pumpkin spice latte and we discuss what we're going to talk about in what order.
We swear a lot more, but that's pretty much how it goes.
And we could catch up on what we've been up to. And this week we've been a bit delayed with our recording, and so I just said to Rob, I can't be bothered. I just can't be bothered. Do you know what? I'm just going to spin a wheel. So this week, and as Rob said, for 1 week possibly only, unless of course you guys love this feature, and then we'll keep it. Get in touch with us on our email or comment below, or on our Twitter at Walford Weekly. This week only, we are going to spin a wheel of choices of our subject matter, and then we're going to just discuss it. So it's quite good though, because it means we don't know where we're going.
We have no idea. Anything could happen.
From anywhere.
Anything could happen over the next hour and a half. Anything could happen.
Exactly. It's nuts. It's absolute nuts.
Craziness.
But, the one thing I will say is that we're not going to talk about the flashback episode, as we've already done that. We've done that episode already, which you can find, and I'll put a little link at the top of the screen as well. But watch this first. But you can find that on our YouTube channel on any of your favourite podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But yes, it is good. It is pretty much half an hour of Rob and I literally just
gushing. Gushing and orgasming and all over the place. And you came in your thousands, to watch that mess. So we thank you very much for all of your faithful views. We hope you're all here this week too, just to see us deal with the wheel. So go on then, Alex.
Deal with the wheel. Right. So Rob, let's get going. Let's start with our first
spin
story.
The wheel, Alex.
Okay, Rob. Okay, I'm excited. Here we go. Here comes the first spin. First spin. It is. Sharon gets her fill. So we are first of all then starting with Sharon's story, which started a couple of weeks ago, where Sharon was going to prove to everyone that she's had enough of Phil. She's moving on, goes on a date with, let's just say, quite a silver fox.
A daddy.
quite the daddy, wasn't he?
Not as much of a daddy as my driving instructor, by the way, Alex.
No.
A very hot driving instructor. But he was definitely encouraging me to come back next week. Took me down a country road. It's been a while since a man's taken me down one of them. But yes, so Sharon went on a date with, I thought this guy looked like Trevor Eve. You know Trevor Eve, the guy who used to be in Waking the Dead. You seen Waking the Dead? It was with Sue Johnson and all that kind of thing. No,
No.
a clue what I'm on about.
No,
some viewers and listeners will know what I'm on about though. But he's quite a dashing man. He was very tall,
handsome.
Kind of, yeah,
An upgrade. Let's be honest.
Let's be fair here.
There's no love like a Mitchell love, but there is a more attractive love.
Very shallow podcast.
But
you know, I think Sharon. I think they were quite well suited. You know, especially this new glam Sharon. You know, they could have. She looked gorgeous this week as well. She's glowing, is the situation.
She's so hot now, isn't she? Not that she wasn't
so
before,
hot, but she's like. It's making me question things that I thought I had sorted, Alex.
It makes me tingle in places I didn't think I could tingle.
No woman has made me tingle like that in a while. But yes, so Sharon goes on this date. Linda sets him up with a guy called Matt, and it all seems to be going quite well. They sort of sit in the Vic and they've got lots of things in common. They're chatting, and Sharon's enjoying herself. She goes, "Right, should we go back to mine?" Like what the slag she is, as Kat keeps calling her quite a few times over the past 2 weeks. And they go back to Sharon's. You know, and they're chatting on the sofa, sharing date stories and all that kind of thing. Then they have a kiss, and then Sharon realizes, actually, no, I cannot. You don't kiss like Phil. You don't kiss like Phil. So, frankly, get
this
out.
Forceful egg coming towards you. It's not quite the same.
And she basically just kicks him out, and then later on blocks his number.
I know who blocked
Sharon.
That's a dirty move, isn't it? I mean,
I
you always have them as an emergency, eh?
Always, especially someone like that, you know. Or even just at the same time, you know, it's not like that's not on the basis of Phil and Sharon.
It's not like Phil would do it. It's not like Sharon's not done it before.
Over the past 30 years, you know, at least he's older than Keanu. I want to have just a quick conversation about Sharon here for a moment, Alex, because there was a bit of a debate online as to what is going on with Sharon. Is she really this desperate? You know, what is it about Phil that kind of keeps her coming back? And I know you're unhappy about this, massively unhappy, because you had a rant on Twitter. And what's
rant? It wasn't a rant. It was just a comment.
Ranting. Poor Johnson.
A comment for people to join in and to tell me otherwise. As I say, I'm not a gatekeeper. I like for people to tell me what I'm wrong about.
Gatekeeper.
I'm a gatekeeper, exactly. I'm a silver fox keeper. But no, I know what the tweet you're alluding to, and that is just that it just felt like that Sharon's had such progress these past few months, since she's kind of stopped being with Phil. She's got herself a gym. She's moved on. Her brother Zack. Yeah. But you know what I mean? She's a businesswoman. She's kind of looking after herself. And then it kind of started to crumble away when Phil got arrested. But that was understandable. You know, they've got this friendship. She's still concerned for him. She still cares for him. Mm-hmm. But then when he got out of prison and they shared that kiss, Sharon's almost slowly started to become obsessed with him again. And it's not that I don't think it's unbelievable, but there's a part of me that wishes it wasn't happening, because I like that Sharon's moved on, and I love Zack this week as well.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have massively enjoyed Sharon's, let's be honest, break from, you know, the Phil stuff, you know, everything that was going on with Zack and Jada, and basically trying to seemingly start her own new family unit up. That was good, because Sharon is perfectly capable of being her own character away from Phil. And it was like we were getting a new Sharon for a little while. But it seems Clenners came in and thought, actually, no, I want Sharon back with Phil. So let's get that back together as soon as bloody possible. So he's done that. But the thing is, it's not like it's out of character for Sharon, is it? If you think about, I mean, everyone always kind of goes back to the Denny thing as to why she shouldn't go back. But it goes back so much further than that, of Phil just treating her like crap over the years, and Sharon constantly crawling back. In fact, you can throw Grant into that mix as well. She's exactly the same as Grant. Both brothers have hit her, right? That, for most people, that you'd be running for the hills, Alex, all right? But Phil has punched her in public in the middle of a pub. He's done that. You know, they've cheated on each other. They've lied to each other. He was involved in Dennis's death. He was involved in Denny's death, and yet she still kind of goes crawling back. So it's not like this is out of character. She's a bit beyond help at this point, I think. If everything that's happened so far was not going to turn her off Phil Mitchell, then nothing will now, I don't think. He is that good in bed.
What's that? Is he? Because she never gave the silver fox a chance, and I reckon he would have had a good chance. But what's that syndrome where, like, if you get kidnapped, you then start
syndrome.
Stockholm. That's what I feel like Sharon's got herself stuck into now. She's stuck in Stockholm, and she's. Yeah, she is. And I can't see past that now. But you're absolutely right. Like, and also it's interesting, like, if you look back in the history of like Grant and how Grant and Phil have treated Sharon, like the abuse really that Sharon has had to tolerate.
Domestic abuse.
Domestic violence.
Both of them. Yeah.
Exactly. One maybe more hidden because I think Grant kind of did it behind the locked doors. So there's never
Phil was like,
episode.
There was people around. I don't care, schmack.
Yeah. And when Grant kind of walked around smashing plates, singing jingle bells around her, you know. But that would be like
Phil more than Grant. I've never understood that.
Well,
what can I say?
That takes me very nicely to our question, a poll of the week, because who is better suited for Phil at the end of the day? For Sharon at the end of the day? Do you think it is Phil, or do you think it is Grant? Because there's rumours going around as well now that Grant's coming back to the square too. So go to our Twitter.
Only rumours.
At Walford Weekly, and find the poll of the week. It'll be posted at the same time as this episode, and we'd like you to tell us, who do you think was better suited for Sharon? Who should go with Sharon? Should it be Grant or should it be Phil? Or indeed no one? Or the Silver Fox?
Or
me?
Stick another version.
Me.
Yeah, you and Sharon. You and Sharon. I can totally see that working. I mean, you'd have some kind of relationship, I think. What do you think? Who would you?
Personally, out of them two, but out of them two, then I think Phil probably would be better. Just because they do have that history, and I think that Grant would. Sharon was always Grant's love, wasn't she? So, well, for Phil, Sharon was just another notch on the bedpost.
I feel like if Grant came back now, their roles would be reversed from Sharon Gate, though, because I feel like with Phil, it was always a lost thing. With Grant, with Grant, they were kind of like a conventional couple, to as much as a conventional relationship as you can be in a mutual relationship. But I mean, honestly, I think it's fascinating because what the flashback episode did for me was sort of put Phil and the role that women have in Mitchell men's lives in perspective. And actually, you can include Callum in this analogy as well. You know, Mitchell men just treat their partners like crap, and yet there's something that keeps the partners coming back. You know, you
say that, but Callum hasn't been seen sight or hair for a long time recently.
No, Callum fans are furious.
They're not happy.
They're not happy. They never are. Not happy never are. Unless you've got a half-naked Max Bowden or Tony Clare on screen, they are never happy.
Don't worry. There's a few episodes coming up. I'm rest assured.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So Sharon has basically kind of turned up at the wedding. What do you think of the scene between Kat and Sharon this week? Now, I know it was in a bit of from your view, kind of a bit of a lackluster episode on Monday. However, I really enjoyed the Kat and Sharon scene. I liked that because I think the Kat actually gave her some great home truths in that because she called her tragic. So what are you constantly going to do? Just kind of be sniffing around my marriage, looking for scraps of Phil whenever he feels like it. That's pathetic, Sharon. Get a life. You know, grow up. She said to Sharon.
She did.
All true.
That is true. She said, you know, you've had your chance. You know, you stop playing the game now. Kind of move on. I mean, I suppose that was maybe a shining beacon on what I felt like was a bit of a messed, kind of haphazard episode on Monday. It just seemed to be just all over the place on Monday's episode as well. So I think that was kind of the one constant that happened that episode because you saw Sharon kind of sitting there with a photograph. Zack was like, you know, you still want to try? And she was like, yeah, go on then, I will. Popped over to Phil's house, showed him the photograph. I didn't really know what she expected Phil to do there at that point. Like to be let's
be honest here. A tad unhinged, I think. To go over to some bloke's house. It's getting married that day and like, this is your wedding present, and then just hand that picture over. That picture that was taken when I was married to your brother and we were having an affair at the time. How unhinged is that?
Remember the good times, Phil. Remember the good times.
You know, when you used to hit me in public and we had a public humiliation. Remember those days? Oh, don't you miss them? Honestly,
I must say, I did love, and when we had the revelation from Tracy this week that it was the best shag she ever had.
Amazing.
I did love the scene. Though, but like when Shirley and Kathy and Sharon were all sat around the bar, all the past lovers of Phil.
Yeah.
Like I just half expected like lots of
them with the egg before they get beheaded.
Exactly. It's just like I love that like, there was that kind of communal. Like, they kind of all talk to each other about like, oh, you remember when Phil did this? Or remember when Phil brought the gun to the wedding? And you know, remember when he bought me roses and then kid shot me? You know, it's like, God's sake.
And then Tracy kind of sticks in. I would be quite happy for us to have a running joke moving forward of Tracy just kind of wandering in the back of scenes, just dropping somebody. Oh, I shagged him, and then just leave again. I'd like that. I bet she's a right dirty mare.
A couple of weeks ago, we said, why isn't there none of these storylines? And then all of a sudden, we're learning this story where Tracy slept with Phil. She slept with Dennis. We know before that.
Dennis, yeah. Well, we knew she slept with Phil because it was revealed at on Boat Week, wasn't it? Because I think she told Mo or something like that she slept. So that was when that was revealed.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that.
So that didn't come as a surprise to me that Tracy said that. We knew she slept with Phil, but we weren't aware how good old Mitchell is in bed. Which maybe, as far as Sharon is concerned, it all boils down to how many orgasms you have in bed, and anything else is forgivable, I assume.
Well, Sharon almost kissed. So once the ceremony was almost cancelled for the wedding between Kat and Phil, for reasons we'll discuss a bit later, Sharon and Phil almost, when the will wields it, when Sharon and Phil almost kiss when because Sharon continues to kind of pile on thick. They're kind of like, you'll never be able to rekindle the same relationship we had, the history we've had, the past, the love, the relationship.
She has a point.
I know.
But... if Sharon had just basically turned around and done what Alfie did when he arrived, go, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? That could have just been a perfectly fine counter argument, I think.
But I feel like Phil did reciprocate it a little bit. Like Phil, like you say, Kat, when Alfie turned up, which we'll talk more about in a second, if the will allows it.
When the will allows it,
yeah. Kat purposely kind of pushed him away, said, no, we had our time, we had our chance, that's the end. Phil didn't really do that, did he? Phil just persuaded it in. That's all right. You carry on. Phil kind of carried it on, and that led quite rightly, I feel like, for Zack then to threaten Phil later on.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because Sharon was very upset, and Zack, brotherly love, stood up for his sister and said to Phil, I don't go to the gym 6 days a week to look good, mate. I go to the gym 6 days a week so I can also beat the hell out of you.
A visual reminder would have bolstered that scene no end, I think. But other than that,
ripped off his shirt?
Yes, I don't know, like this, just to look good, and I'd have been like, well, fine, thank you.
So I what's the outcome of this? Really, what's going to happen? Is Sharon going to get her way?
Yeah, obviously, eventually. Well, because when we get to the wedding, when the wheel allows. We will discuss the almost kiss that they had, which was interrupted by the lady vicar. That sort of thing is still going on. And now Alfie's back. Both of them are now distracted by their exes. Both of them could barely care. They don't care about this wedding. Otherwise, the wedding would have happened there and then. So Kat Mitchell, I don't think is ever going to be a thing. We're never going to see Kat Mitchell because otherwise the wedding would already have happened.
Yeah, but the thing is, they couldn't have had the wedding because the vicar, which we need to remind ourselves also is the vicar who Dot didn't like. Remember, she's way back. They brought back the vicar, the original vicar, because she's gay. The vicar is gay, and Dot didn't like that very much. She thought, I think that's not quite right for a vicar to be gay. So, which also made me think that I think they're going to I hope they'll use that vicar for when they do the memorial episode of Dot. Maybe. Because there's that connection between them. So she'll be able to give a realistic testimony about Dot and her relationship with her.
She hated me, says the vicar.
No. Dot eventually
they
made up and they were all happy. And then Colin came and watched the gay wedding and everything went great. And, she flew that rainbow flag. She was an ally by the end, as Dot will always be. But I've completely lost my train of thought now. But yes, the wedding pumpkin latte season. But I think I don't think they were all ever going to get married that day because it was just too much had been put off, and everyone had gone home, everyone had gone to the Vic. It's just the fact that Sharon and Phil, it's clear that Sharon wants Phil and it's clear that Phil is allowing that to happen. Yeah. And I think that I'd be interested to know how lenient Zack would be to allow Sharon to carry on wearing her heart on the sleeve toward Phil from this point onward.
Yeah, I mean, Zack versus Phil would be interesting. And there was a moment kind of once Zack had stormed out of the office where Phil kind of glared after him and you kind of think, oh dear.
We couldn't get him.
Zack's in trouble now.
Zack's hard as nails. Is old Zack.
Oh, he is.
But I'm sure they'll find a way of getting.
I demand that all fights are conducted with Zack with his top off, covered in baby oil, preferably. I think that's the only way we can really tell how hard Zack is. You know, I think it's only fair.
Well, you may get your wish, but anyway, you know what? I think it's time to spin that wheel again, Rob.
Please.
Right, here we go.
Could be anything.
Sounds like a machine gun. Okay, here we go.
What?
Oh.
Yeah.
It's time for Frankie's fight.
Then.
Yes, this is an interesting story.
Now then, yes. Go on then.
Okay.
I wonder if we'll have different thoughts on this. Go on, you start.
Well, so it started off where Frankie was just teaching at the school, and she's noticed that Nugget and Denzel have been a little bit sexualizing some of the girls in their class, especially the pupil who Frankie is looking after, her deaf pupil who she's looking after. Right. Before we go any further, can I just a bit of a gripe? And it's a stupid gripe, and I appreciate it's a stupid gripe. And please, I know I hate myself for saying what I'm about to say. Right, but does it take you out of the show a little bit when, for the subtitles at the bottom of the screen, they use the EastEnders font?
I liked them.
The EastEnders font.
So what, your complaint isn't the fact that the subtitles existed, your complaint was the fact that they were in the EastEnders font?
Yes.
Why? What did you want them? What did you want them to use? Comic Sans?
No, of course not. Like
Times New Roman?
Of course.
What did you want?
Oh, italics. No, and also I appreciate, before people also get in touch with us, you can follow us on Twitter. Like when we post videos on our Twitter, yes, I know I use the EastEnders font for the
So what are you complaining about?
Because we're not EastEnders. I don't like it when it's being used in the actual show because it feels like it's, I'd rather they just use a normal Arial. 14 points. Anyway, yes. Oh, that new Little Mermaid trailer was awesome, by the way.
It's good, isn't it?
Isn't it, Jess?
Yes. Look forward to
Made me
that.
excited. I hope they put it on Disney Plus.
I'm sure they will.
Yes.
Alex, I don't know what you're complaining about. I don't know what to say to you.
Okay,
all right?
Like I say, small gripe, stupid.
In fact, I looked at it and thought, oh, the EastEnders font, that's nice. And I like the fact that the subtitles were there because I quite liked having the sign language translated. That was nice.
Oh, no, I get that, of course.
Except that, it was only for that little brief moment. The fact that the subtitles appeared, and because it was so out of, it was so out of the ordinary, I assumed we were going to get more of that, and we didn't. It was just for that brief little exchange between them. Which you kind of wonder, were they needed then in that case? Because I figured that we were going to learn more sign language as we went along, but we didn't. So,
but to be fair, but then when the episodes last week carried along, Frankie went out on a night out with all the kind of 20-somethings of the square. That was nice as well. That was cool. You
outside the square as well, Alex. They went to another club in London.
I know, not even the E20 or whatever. No. It doesn't exist anymore, does it? Peggy's, not even Peggy's.
E20. It's had a few names since then, Alex. Get out of the 90s.
I know.
Get out of the 90s, Alex.
I'm watching the classics again, and this guy kind of approaches Frankie and won't leave her alone, so he follows her to the tube and then follows her down through the square, and he gets very close to kind of basically attacking her on the street. Luckily, people spot her. She runs home, and then and then on Friday's episode, which, may I say, last Friday's episode was
perfect.
It was top and tail last week. The Monday episode, which had the flashback, was just brilliant, and we gushed about it. Gush. And the Friday episode was just present day EastEnders, how it should be. It was perfect.
To a T. Friday's episode was spectacular. And there'll be elements that we will discuss when the wheel allows from other elements from last Friday. But last Friday was the last week as a whole, I think, was one of my favourite weeks of EastEnders for It was fantastic last week.
Which is why I felt a bit deflated where then this week the Monday episode came out and it was a bit, but it got better in the end. But again, the wedding, I don't think the wedding was quite the build up we thought it was going to be.
Well, the wedding wasn't what we thought it was going to turn out to be. We thought there was going to be something slightly bigger and spectacular. Either Kat was going to get married or it was going to be the end of this storyline. I think what we were expecting, rather than it just sort of being another week but with a church thrown in. So maybe that's what it was.
And the vicar, the gay vicar. But yeah, Frankie, I just want to say the one line that really hit home for me, and I've heard it being said a few times, especially where in real life cases where women have been attacked. Exactly that.
Yeah.
Frankie,
Very like
I shouldn't be the because
It's true.
Mick was, and it's entirely true. Mick was saying to her, like, you need well, she said, I've done everything right. I stayed in a well-lit area. I kept you in contact all the time where I would be. I messaged you. I went directly home from being off the tube. And yes, I still got attacked. I still had this man follow me and pursue me and wanting to do god awful things with me. Why is it me that has to do all this? It's him who should have to change, not me. And I thought, oh my God, I welled up when Frankie performed, when she performed those lines. I genuinely cried because I thought, oh my God, I can't imagine how horrible it must feel in that situation as a woman to feel
Especially
that vulnerable.
Woman. That's even
and a
scarier.
deaf woman. Yeah.
My thing about that was, yes, all that was spectacular and I loved it. And it was brilliant and so well written and well handled. However, the one thing I did kind of think was, you're saying all this to someone who has been raped, Frankie, and that wasn't really addressed at all. You know, it was sort of just like Mick at some point kind of gone, yeah, I understand what you're saying here. You know, I've been, yes, completely different circumstances, but at the end of the day, it was still, Mick has been sexually assaulted and abused too. So I would have liked to have had that little moment between father and daughter because it seemed like Frankie was sort of kind of yelling at Mick because he's a man, so he didn't really understand what she was going through, when actually Mick has more understanding than most men about what Frankie had gone through for entirely different reasons, but like you say, it all boils down to the same sort of issue. So I wondered if that could have been addressed a little bit,
Maybe. I mean, for Frankie, it might have felt more of a shock though, because Mick was more groomed into the sexual abuse, while Frankie, it was more of a kind of a snap decision by the guy who decided to do it to her. So perhaps that's why she saw it as in it's not the same. But I know I completely understand what you're saying from this. They're in a very similar boat, similar to when Ben spoke to her as well. There was I felt like they were almost avoiding slightly, but they kind of then addressed it at the end, where Ben had recently had a very similar story to tell, and eventually it was actually Ben who convinced Frankie then to go to the police,
which was nice. Likes that. Yeah, that was no issues with that whatsoever. The other thing, I mean, this is the thing because they've done quite a. I'm not saying that they've done it too many. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I mean is, because we've had quite a few sorts of these stories going on recently. What we've ended up with is the fact that the police are. We keep being told, well, the police. It's not really a lot of proof. And it's kind of suggesting, well, there isn't really a lot of point going to the police, because Ben's been to the police and Keeble basically said, well, these are notoriously hard to convict, so good luck with that, Phil. And now Jack has turned around to the role that Jack seems to have in very recent years, where he's kind of just not a lot I can do, really. Not a lot I can do. There wasn't CCTV, can't do a lot.
Until Amy's name got brought up, and then Jack was suddenly very curious about finding things to do things. Yeah, it was like, oh, well, my daughter's had some kind of thing happen at school. Well, maybe I'll look into it.
I'm not criticising that because there's a truth to it, and Linda is a prime example of that. Dean didn't get sent down, despite the fact that Dean's went to court. So it's not like I'm not criticizing it for being untrue, but it's kind of just like it's quite a depressing message, isn't it? And I'm not saying it's not true. They're sending out a truth, but whether I don't know, does it support reporting it? I don't know.
A lot of women, well, and men have actually, if you think about it, the current cast of the show have been raped, isn't it? Like you say, Linda, Mick, Stacey, Ruby,
Frankie,
Ben.
There's and probably quite a few more as well. Kathy. You know, the list goes on. You could probably have quite a good episode of just all women that have been sexually assaulted, and have quite a stunning episode there where they kind of all discuss their experiences and all discuss how. And many people within the same family have had this happen to them in the square as well. So there is scope, I think. If they're going to
Freddie,
they're really, Freddie
was born from,
exactly. So there is a discussion to be had, I think, amongst characters who have experienced it, and I'd like to see that, because what we've had, if you remember going back as far as Ruby's, you had that moment, you had that great episode in the Vic where people were sort of talking about, well, who's to blame here? And that was a great episode, if you remember. But I feel like we haven't had a whole... Yeah, it was a great episode, but I feel like what we haven't had is an episode where rape survivors and sexual assault survivors of the square all sit down together and discuss their experiences. I think that would be very powerful. I'd quite like to see that. Meanwhile, away from this slightly, I wanted to briefly discuss about Denzel and Nugget. Now, ever so quietly in the background, those two have become quite a toxic pairing, haven't they?
They have.
They're
And
not really
Nugget's doing my nutting.
doing your nugget in, is he?
He's doing my nugget in, yeah.
It's interesting because they're not. You can hardly look at the pair of them and go, "What little scamps they are." You know what we're talking about is two lads who are really being inappropriate. You know, they're kind of. You know, we're led to believe. I didn't realize they'd done this until Frankie explicitly said it, but they've kind of created. Stuck Frankie's head on top of porn. You know, we've seen him slapping women's bums, Amy's bum in the street. You know, all that kind of thing. Now, what I'm actually kind of quite pleased to see is that they are at the same time being presented as just stupid teenage boys who don't really understand about, you know, kind of giving people space and
boundaries.
Boundaries. That's the word I was looking for. You know, they don't really they clearly don't understand that yet, and they're just sort of being lads and being stupid, which I don't mind that in characterization. But I kind of wonder how much further are they going to go, because what we very quickly started to realize is that those two together are a pain and they're bad. And so I wonder if we're going to explore their relationship a little bit more. What do you think?
I think they're clearly a duo now, aren't they? And I'm hoping that almost like they tend to do with two young lads as a kind of friendship. They start off as being quite bad and like almost criminal, but then they kind of split off and become like just young adults, and then they're just normal, if that makes any sense. I mean, there was that telling sentence that Frankie said to Denzel, is like, maybe if you kind of stepped back a little bit and be more kind and considerate toward Amy, their relationship could blossom between you, because she kind of indicated that Amy clearly has a thing for Denzel, and Denzel was a bit like, ooh, really? Oh, I quite like the idea of that. And Nugget in the background looking all sunken face, like, then was like
Nugget.
kind of.
I don't mind.
Oh no, he annoys me. He annoys me.
I don't see what he's done. He hasn't done enough yet.
Because he just sits there looking a bit like dull and bored all the time.
It's a bit gormless,
which is fine because that's a teenage boy. But it's
exactly.
Nah, not for me.
I don't mind him yet. I want to know a bit more about Nugget, and I want to kind of explore Denzel and Nugget's relationship a little bit, because at the moment they are kind of veering into quite a toxic relationship, which is interesting, but I want to know kind of what's making their relationship like that, and sort of exploring their role within the young group. And because obviously we're going to be focusing quite soon, as soon as they seem to be moving all the young chess pieces together to create a young group of people. I'd quite like to see kind of their dynamic within that group explored a bit more. So yeah, I'm excited by that.
Yeah, I mean, as we say, this is ultimately Frankie's departure story.
So how is this going to lead into Frankie's exit, do you think?
Well, this is it. I was going to ask you the same question, so I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But it's going to happen.
Don't know.
I wonder. I'm just wondering if it's because we've not really been given a time frame of when the actress is leaving.
No.
But I'm wondering if it is going to be the same time or just before Mick leaves. So whether she's gonna, it's just that they said that this was going to be her big exit story. This was going to be the story that kind of she leaves on. So will she get justice somewhere? Will she bump into the guy on the street and kind of, I don't know. Will it be? I'm wondering if it's going to be similar to, remember when the reincarnation of Michelle came back and she had that stalker storyline, and the way they kind of resolved that was that they had him come to the house and then had Karen and her and Sharon, all the women kind of say, don't do that to women, you naughty, naughty man. And the man was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I should have done it in the first place. And then kind of went off.
Has this storyline veered a little bit pamphletty to you at any point this week? I've seen that kind of said a bit online. Do you reckon? Can you see it?
A bit what?
Sorry,
a
bit pamphletty, a bit lectury. Have you felt that type? Not lecturous. That's a very different thing. That's what the men are doing. Lecturing.
Lecturing. Sorry.
Have you felt that tone on it at all? I've seen that kind of said in a few little discreet places online. What do you think?
Not really.
Not massively for me either.
To be honest with you, not for me. I think it's important to be told. I've seen a few people have gotten a bit upset because it's kind of crossed over with the whole Ben storyline as happening or had just happened. So it's kind of So it's kind of watered down one or the other. But I don't think, because the fact that I'm pleased that they've involved Ben in it. And actually, I wouldn't mind if Ben had been involved in it a little bit more, and perhaps had a scene between Frankie and Ben, because it's still very raw with Ben right now. It would make sense for that to kind of be a concept, as you said earlier, it makes sense to have a conversation with them two together. I would love that episode you were just talking about, where you saw a few survivors of rape or abuse, and that would be really interesting. Maybe a lock-in in the Vic or something like that. You know. Something like that would be really
nowhere
nice.
else but the Vic would be right for that.
It wouldn't be any better because the alcohol is on tap, so they're going to just go up to the site, just have a few more brandies,
sharing their experiences. Yeah, exactly. Let us know in the comment section what you thought of this episode, what you thought of this storyline. What did you think it veered into lecherous? Even I'm doing it now, into lecturing, or did you think that the tone was pretty much nailed right? I think they got the tone right, but do let us know down below in the comment section. And now we're going to spin the wheel once again.
What are you looking forward to next then, Rob? There's 3 more choices left on the wheel.
So what we got?
We got Billy on the Run, Alfie's Arrival, or Dotty's Finley.
You thought of that, didn't you? I'm looking forward to talking about the cat stuff and the Alfie stuff. So let's hope that the wheel lands on that.
Here we go then. Here we go.
I can't believe we're doing this.
We have Billy on the Run. So we're talking about Billy next.
That'll do.
Billy is next. So, as we said from last week, or the flashback episode, we learnt that it was Phil's dad that shot Keeble's father.
Yes, Eric
but
Mitchell.
Keeble wants to find anyone in the Mitchell family to blame. Going for the weakest link, I think she's decided, and that is Billy Mitchell. Phil's got being told by Keeble that's what she's doing. So he pays Billy to run away. Honey gets really upset because it's upsetting Janet. And
let's discuss that honey scene on Friday.
I mean, that honey scene on Friday was fantastic. Yeah, Janet and Will got very upset. But before Billy can run away, the police arrest Billy, and everyone now in the square thinks that Billy is being arrested for murder. Someone then comes to visit Billy, but let's talk about that in a moment. Let's first of all then talk about what we've just said. So, as you say, Friday's episode, Honey's talk with Kat.
Episode. I mean, even the scene where she was yelling at Phil, loved that as well.
Yeah,
it was kind of just like, oh, hello, Honey, where the hell have you been?
Exactly. It was so nice to see Honey in this
get that mode,
ditzy Honey. She's always had it in her. She's always been a very strong woman. It's just that they've not given her the chance. And it's just, and to show her defense for Billy like that actually made me quite like Billy and Honey getting back together again.
I always say about characters that it only takes one episode for you to be reminded why they're a good character. And that was Honey's episode on Friday. I mean, it had all the Frankie stuff going on, which was its own separate plaudit, I think. But Honey and Emma Barton were the star of Friday's episode, as far as I'm concerned, because it was fantastic. I love the scene where she was yelling at Phil. And I love the fact that Phil was kind of the biggest defense Phil could come out with was, well, you need to watch what you're saying, Honey. And Honey just completely railed into him. It was like, I don't care. I do not care. And Phil kind of just sat there and took it because he knows that she was right. And he knows that it's unfair. I mean, there was an element to me, a very small kind of modicum that made me, oh, bless Phil. This is the last thing he needs at this moment because everything was falling apart for Phil at that moment. But it was great. It was absolutely great. And what I will say, I mean, I know we've discussed Kat and Phil already, but what was interesting about that was the fact that Kat kind of walked in to Phil yelling at the kids and threatening to give them a good hiding, like Eric would, which then led into Honey and Kat having that great conversation where they were discussing gin. Parallel, possibly, between the flashback episode where Peggy and Glenda were sat there with the gins and discussing Mitchell men and their roles within the Mitchell kind of hierarchy. Well, that was quite interesting. Don't know if it was a deliberate kind of parallel, but I noticed it. And I love that. I hope there's more Honey and Kat stuff to come. But then if Phil and Kat aren't really going to be a thing for much longer, it possibly won't be. But you know, we'll see. But I think that Friday's episode maybe made Phil look at Honey with a little bit more respect than he normally would. So I hope that remains, and I hope that Honey remembers how she was able to do that moving forward with Phil.
I like that. I like that. Honey will support her team, and her team at that point was Billy, and I think when she. It was because she wanted her kids to be safe, Janet and Will, and she didn't like the fact that Janet and Will were, and in front of them as well, that Billy was being arrested, and it was for murder as well, and that was said in front of them, and I think that really hurt Honey, and that was her gut instinct to like attack and yell at Phil. and Kat about it. And then as she calmed down a little bit, she then realised, but then obviously Billy is in trouble too, and that she needs to be on Billy's side too. And I just think it sounds weird, but the fact that Billy and Honey came together because of this, it felt natural and it felt right. Rather than
completely.
weeks and weeks and weeks of being strung along with Billy doing something and and Honey going out with someone else. And they did do that a couple of weeks ago, but it was just kind of it was almost a joke because of Mr. Lister as well, and the old Mr. Lister having that beautifying himself when he went to Denise's, the only customer she had that day that Lola was dealing with, as always. And it just, the fact that they connected over this and it was an instant, their attraction was back together, and Honey kind of realised, Billy is lost without her, and Billy is basically walked over by the Mitchells unless she is there to kind of guide him and take his hand and kind of support his corner as well. I did. I just really did, and it was so lovely to see Emma Barton have scenes which wasn't
get something,
which wasn't standard
full of malapropisms, kind of wasn't Honey being funny. But there was a little moment of kind of like Billy with dirty pants is unhygienic, and then she starts crying. But that fine, do you know what I mean? It kind of just it led nicely into the scene between her and Kat. Yeah, absolutely perfect. I cannot gush enough how much I loved last Friday's episode. It was fantastic. And now they're back together. Now, Janet's thrilled, Will's happy, so it seems that little unit is solid again. Now, what's going to be interesting from here is where that leaves Jay. Hopefully, that's going to I'd like to now see sort of Billy and Jay start having scenes together, because obviously Jay is now going to be at no point really was involved in any of that. So I'd like to see sort of Jay's reaction to them being back together. What will how will their relationship move forward?
Jay was kind of like strangely not involved with anything for the wedding this week, which was a bit surprising considering he's like a brother to Ben. You think he would be more involved in the wedding party a bit more. I know he just puts a swan around, doesn't he? And when they were looking for a car, I thought the first instinct I thought was, why didn't Rocky speak to Jay? Because the parking, there's a lot of cars, or Audis and BMWs, not even bad cars behind them. No. Just speak to Jay. However, the thing that I thought was an interesting mix to add to the family is the fact that Freddie has made his
Freddie has arrived.
Freddie has arrived. Freddie has turned up, and he knows a bit. Well, he thinks Billy's his dad, but Billy's actually not his dad, because Little Mo hasn't corrected Freddie and told him otherwise.
Which we suspected might have happened, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, again, not really out of Little Mo's character.
No, not at all. Perfect character for Little Mo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would she want to address that herself? She doesn't want to be reminded of it. And how do you tell somebody, especially as you get older, the lie goes on and on and on until the kids should be old enough to be able to take on board what you're saying, and yet the lie keeps going and going. So when exactly is the right time to tell a kid? And then you just end up never doing it. But now Freddie's now old enough, he's decided, right, I want to go see my dad. And then lands up in Walford. Now, it's going to feel weird if we don't at least get a Little Mo Skype call thing at some point. I think that I would take. I don't think Little Mo's going to come back.
I don't think we'll get the Skype call either, which I think is devastating because I love the actress so much.
I know, so do I. But I think it's going to feel weird if we don't have at least that. Because how is this going to get addressed? How is Freddie going to react to this when eventually he does find out the truth? How is he going to find out the truth? If it's going to feel weird if Mo has no involvement in this whatsoever. Because surely she should be worried about Freddie at this point. Like, where are you? It feels like Mo hasn't been involved, hasn't been told where Freddie is at this point.
I mean, it would make sense for Little Mo to be there, for the revelation. Almost when the truth comes out, it makes sense for Little Mo to kind of just walk into the room and be like, "Oh, hi, Billy," or whoever eventually. I think naturally it should be Billy who's the one who tells. And we know that Chris Crenshaw seriously loves Billy's character, so I think that Billy will be the one. Billy, I mean, look at Billy. Look what's happened to Billy.
Billy's the star of the show these days, which comes out of nowhere, but I'm here for it.
He's the crown. So it has to be Billy who tells Freddie. I don't know. It just felt like such a shame also that Big Mo this week didn't have any interaction with Freddie. That would make sense too.
She's gone now as well, isn't she? She just seemed like Mo didn't really get an
back in the cake
she just had her last scene and that was it. Yeah. She arrived with the cake and maybe left in the cake, but that's about it.
I mean, she likes to turn up in boxes, so she turned up in the coffin, didn't she, that time, and then decided to be dead.
That's true. Sometimes feeling this stuff.
How are you feeling about Freddie as a character right now? I know it's only been a couple of weeks, but us, we like to judge. So how do you feel about him right now?
Yeah, I like him. I think what we're going to have at the moment is, because he's very much sort of in extreme Freddy mode, because we're getting to know Freddy. This happens, I think, when you either have a new character start or you bring a character back. You have the extreme versions of themselves for a few weeks until they settle down. You know, I look at Janine. You know, when she first came back, we had quite kind of ultra camp, smirky, bitchy Janine for a little while before she settled in. Felix, you know, he was quite extreme when he first started. Now Felix is starting to settle down, so we can start to know Felix. And I think that's where we're in with Freddy at the moment, where he's sort of being ultra cheeky chappy, you know, doing crazy things like stealing a Hummer to go and get a hat for, you know, all for no reason. You know, all that kind of crazy stuff, and you just have to sort of wait until they settle before
they
you
settle
really
down a
to get to know
bit.
them.
Yeah.
So I think at the moment we have to sort of just wait until Freddie's done his thing before we can really start studying him a little bit more. It's all right. I think he's maybe settled in a little bit too easily. I think everyone's kind of just accepted him quite quickly. Even Billy, you know, he's kind of,
Yeah.
in any moment where he's called Billy Dad. Billy's kind of flinched at it, or kind of tried, or really had that many issues with it. So presumably at some point there is going to be this emotional conversation between them, and I think that's when we will sort of see how good Freddie's going to be to have around. But I like him so far; he's perfectly fine. It's, you know, it's a new element to the Slaters, which is always nice because they're a big family, so it's nice to have that additional sort of element to them. I like his relationship with Stacey. I love his relationship with Eve. That's kind of quite established easily because Eve is just one of those characters you can just give anybody to deal with, and she's fantastic and can just be fine with
It's
them.
remarkable how well Eve, as a character,
I love Eve. She's perfect.
Sewn herself into the show, hasn't she?
She's
It's really weird.
She's just got that earthiness about her that I think if she's around if she turns into a long-term character, you know, she'll be the new Kathy one day. You know, she'll have that. But I mean, she'll have that. Well, no, but I mean, she'll have that ability to sort of like anyone can just go to Eve for advice and give them perfect advice. You know, whilst being a little bit dodgy at the same time. But it'll be fine. But yeah, what do you think, Freddie? I like him. He's all right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, it's only been a couple of weeks. I find sometimes that the way he delivers lines is a bit quick, so it's a bit difficult to know what he's saying. So he says things very quickly, but then
he'll settle in there.
But as I say, that's a settling in thing.
If you go back and look at Lacey Turner's first season. Now, Lacey Turner is one of the strongest.
You're not the first
person
who said this to me. Yeah,
but go back and look at Lacey Turner's first scenes.
Yes,
Lacey Turner will probably say this herself. You know, go back and look at Lacey Turner's first scenes and look at her now and look at the difference.
Oh yeah.
So you cannot judge somebody in the first.
But no, I'm not, because as a character, actually, I really love Freddie, and I love his kind of naivety. I love that Freddie's kind of very naive, and he's quick to please as well, which is nice. Which is another thing I love about Freddie. I love the fact that they've not introduced a horrible character. You know, it would be in past eras they might have introduced Freddie as a kind of like a serial killer who's out to kill Billy because he didn't, you know,
for revenge.
He wants revenge of some sort, but he's not. He's out to he wants to start a relationship with he believes it to be his father, and he wants by connection, he wants to make Janet happy because he sees that as his. That's
nice as well. Yeah, I like that as well. That I like you know, any scenes for Janet, I love because I adore Janet. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see maybe his relationship with Will. Maybe that will be tricky because.
Well, do you see? I don't think it'll be tricky. I think he's going to be like a kind of a right-hand guy for Will, because Will's not very confident, is he? But he's at that age now. He's a teenager. His voice is broken, and he's like looking at girls. Hasn't it just the whole ground rumbles as he talks? And so I feel like it's like almost like his wingman. He's going to be the guy who kind of takes it. You know, he's almost like how Kat was with Zoe. Like he's going to take him out on his first night out to the clubs. He's going to teach him how to be with women. And
then be revealed as Will's dad. You know, that sort of thing. It's gonna be great.
Of course.
Yeah. I also like his relationship with Bobby. That seems to be developing as well. We've already got a relationship between them. We've already got all of the. I mean, I'm not going to curse this because the last time I did this, we had Suki and Honey because I said it was ridiculous, and then it happened. So I'm not going to bring it in. But we've already got all the people online going, Bobby and Freddie, where it's coming. Bobby's going to be bisexual soon. Telling you. Don't.
Do you know? I suppose it feels like we've progressed as a society in the sense that, like, when a man and a woman are friends with each other, they can't be friends. They always have to be in a relationship. Now, if two people of the same sex are friends on screen, they have to be in a relationship. It's like, no, they can be friends, you know. Anyway,
but I like their relationship. I think Bobby is kind of becoming so much more of a comedy character these days, which I'm fine because Clay can do comedy until the
He
cows
can,
come
but
home.
I would like him to
very
do
good.
some serious stuff.
Yeah, well,
I
I think,
like that.
well, presumably there's a plan for Bobby because we got rid of Dana. So what are you planning on doing with or maybe you're just going to get in with Freddie? Who knows? Who knows? We shall see.
Maybe he could be the shoulder that Freddie cries on when Freddie does eventually finds the news out. Because I like that friendship between Bobby, and again, it gives Bobby something to do. Because I don't see Freddie as being one of those kind of lads who goes out drinking and partying all the time. Which is there's a few of the younger characters like Finley and Whitney and Frankie. And, they and Lola. They all they want to go out. They do something. I don't see. To me, I don't see Freddie as that kind of character. So perhaps that would be that's why him and Bobby are good a friendship group together. But with Billy, how then is this going to resolve? How is he going to prove himself innocent, or how is Keeble going to be undone at the end of this? Do you think? Because ultimately Keeble is going against the grain here. She's breaking the rules.
I love those scenes between her and Phil in the car. I liked that because it's the most human Keeble has been in since we've known her. Normally Keeble is just kind of evil police character who's trying to send a character we love to prison or something. But now we're actually getting a kind of ultra human element to Keeble where she's turning around to Phil and going, "You ruined my life, and that is why I'm now going to ruin yours," which is great. I like it. What I think is going to happen, though, this is a prediction, because Richie said to Phil this week, "Well, you need to find some dirt on Keeble," and because of the type of person that Keeble is, presumably there is some out there. What I think is going to happen is that Phil will find some dirt, and will then be able to use that to persuade Keeble to find some evidence to send Lewis down. That's what I think is going to happen, and then Keeble will leave him alone, and that will be the end of the story. I think.
Right. Well, I mean, we've got a long road to go yet. And as I say, this Chris Crenshaw loves a bit of Billy. You got to love a bit of Billy. So I think we've got a long story ahead with Billy and lots of different strands to come. All right. So, right, we've got one more spin of that wheel, Bob. Let's give it a good spin, shall we? The last spin of the wheel, and the colours of Waluigi, for any Nintendo fans out there, are the last two colours on the wheel. So here we go. Last two.
It's a good one.
We're spinning it. Oh, hang on. It's not. Of course, it's not working. The final time. Time is not working. Come on, work for us. Here we go. It's going. So two stories there: Dotty or Alfie's arrival.
It's like Wheel of Fortune, isn't it?
It is just with no
cash.
In
America, that show still.
Alfie's arrival.
Hurrah!
So we'll be talking about Dotty at the end of the show.
What a way to end the show.
I know. But Alfie's arrival then. So as the name suggests, Alfie Moon has returned to the show he planned to ultimately stop the wedding. But that's because Bert and Ernie, which may I say, why haven't they renamed those children by now? Because when they're adults.
Rename children.
Oh, they can. Can't they just...
Maybe Ernie will grow up going, "I'm not being called Ernie for the rest of my life. You can sod off, mother." But Bert's all right. Bert's Bert.
Right, anyway.
Bert
and Ernie got in touch with Alfie. Alfie comes along and says, "You don't want to marry." Yes, you don't want to marry. You don't want to marry Phil. He interrupts the wedding by Kat then chasing Alfie to his barge, which is on the canal, because Bert
the boys hide in Alfie's van. So in fairness, Alfie doesn't mean for any of this to happen at first.
That's true.
The boys hide in the van, and then Alfie finds them, and then should have probably just taken them straight back to the square. Kind of rang Stacey or something. Gone, "I've got the boys. I'll bring them straight back." But no, he then rings Kat and goes, "I've got the boys. Come and get them."
Yeah.
I know you're supposed to get married now, but screw that. Come and get the boys. So Kat turns up in her wedding dress. I'd at least have got changed if I was Kat by this point.
Because she was meant to be at the wedding.
I know
she was meant to be at the wedding. So she thought it was just picking up the kids off school, picking up the kids, bringing them back. But Bert and Ernie had hidden, hadn't they? Because didn't Alfie kind of said I don't know where their kids have gone. You're gonna have to get on the boat, and then they drove off, and then
they were downstairs. The kids, because the kids were fishing and were pulling out rats and knives and stuff out of the river.
Like you do.
Yes. So then Alfie basically kidnaps Kat. He starts the boat, and then they kind of go a little bit along the river, and then he stops the engine, and then he can't get the engine started again. So Kat and Alfie and the boys are effectively stranded in the middle of this very wide canal. And Kat's only solution to that really is to kind of just jump in the canal. Now then,
right.
Woman in wedding dress in water, Alex.
They even referenced it. Did you not notice they referenced it?
Yes, I did.
It's pulling me down, Alfie. Help me.
Just stand up, says Alfie.
I know. They're teasing you now, Rob. See, they used to do it with me, but now they're teasing you.
So I mean, let's discuss that. So Alfie's back. Please see Alfie again. Did you enjoy Alfie? Did you enjoy Alfie's return? Are you not a fan of Alfie? No?
I'm not a fan of Alfie since the last time he was on.
Well, that's been forgotten about, hasn't it?
Not just yet, has it? Not just yet, because Cherry's name was brought back up, and at the end he took a phone call.
Who was that?
Well, is that Hayley? And if indeed it is Hayley, is it possible that Hayley's going to come back recast? Because I don't think the original actress will come back.
Very recast. Very recast.
If you read the news, we won't say why, but
not our place. Not our place to let you know. But yeah, I think if Hayley returns, it won't be the same actress. Put it like that. The year of Hayley. Wow, what a year that was.
What a year that was.
I mean, it's likely. Kat says that she's still in touch with Cherry. As if Cherry sort of as a 2-year-old,
as a child, has her own mobile phone.
Just WhatsApps her every now and again. I'm all right. I went clubbing last night. It's all good. I got the this guy, Kat. You loved him. So I don't know. We'll see what goes on there. But yeah, Alfie is in touch with someone. It felt a bit like the Howie situation where he sort of just had a kind of dodgy phone call, said he loved someone, and then just sort of hung up. So it's that sort of setup. I mean, what do you think? Girlfriend or sort of newly discovered sister, or
I mean,
it
could be Little Mo, because Alfie and Little Mo had a relationship.
They have history.
Imagine that.
I'd enjoy that. I would enjoy that, because then that would be interesting for Billy to come back to as well. Yeah, I'd love for that. I would like that a lot. Realistically, no.
Realistically, no. I mean, Alfie, when Kat mentioned Cherry, I'm so glad I can start doing that again. That's the one reason I'm glad Alfie's back. Again, listen to past podcasts and you'll know why we're doing that.
Before me, Alex.
Before Rob, exactly.
Find the money.
I need some money. Oh, that. Anyway, he seemed really genuinely surprised that she had contact with Cherry. So I don't believe it's Hayley he got in touch with.
Why didn't you tell me that you're talking to Kat?
Because exactly. Because I would have thought that if Cherry has been adopted or given to another family, then Kat would have mentioned that too, and would have kind of used that as a kind of like a thing to poke. Like, Cherry's not with the family anymore, Yeah,
I mean, I love the fact that they've not even bothered addressing where Hayley is at this point. Like, Hayley's just been removed from the annuals of EastEnders. That's fine.
Not working at B&M anymore, we know that.
She is not. Awkward. Yes. So, I mean, what I will say is, instantly you're reminded how good Jesse Wallace and Shane Ritchie are together. I mean, whatever your thoughts on Alfie, those two together is some of the best chemistry in the show's history. They're just, because they're such a memorable pairing, and they instantly got back to it this week. We were back in, I think, relatively predictable territory. Alfie comes back and obviously still madly in love with Kat, and you can tell that Kat still has feelings for Alfie as well. Otherwise, the conversations would have been much shorter. They had that nice moment on the boat. There were some nice conversations between them. I think we are back to cheeky chappy Alfie of the noughties. That seems to be the Alfie that they brought back, because I think Alfie's been through a few metamorphoses since over the years, hasn't he?
Different executive. Yeah, different executive producers have different images of what Alfie should be. And I think Chris Clencher, as you said, I think he's even been quoted as saying he wants to bring him back to like the right when he first was introduced.
The one that you liked.
Nana
Moon. That one back. The one.
Nana
Moon. Don't you start.
Oh,
I love
my Alfie.
Love it. Oh, darling. I love darling. Should come back. That's fun. But I'm fine with this. And if that's sort of, I like the fact that Alfie can kind of just walk onto the square and just sort of have immediate banter with everybody. There was a nice moment where he was walking through the square, and he had a moment with Winston, a moment with Tracy. Him and Shrimpy could probably have had a moment elsewhere. I don't mind it, as long as we don't go back to the absolute obnoxious arse that we had the last time that Alfie was around. Then fine. Obviously, at the end of the week, we've seen many times with Kat and Alfie before. Alfie kisses Kat slaps Alfie, and Alfie pledges that he will have Kat back by the time the next wedding date comes along.
Yes.
So how is he going to manage this? Do you think is it going to take that much hard work? I feel like him and Sharon could probably work together at this stage.
But I think it's already started, hasn't it? Like there was many a scene in the pub where Sharon and Alfie were so many names. Sharon and Alfie were kind of stood there, kind of like both poised, looking at Cat and Phil.
You break them
up. You start, you try. So I feel like somehow subliminally they may work together on this. But
I like that moment. I like that moment when they were sort of catching up outside the church, when sort of standing awkwardly. So what have you been up to? I've got a brother. All right, nice, yeah, cool.
I mean, like, so much like history, like in Sharon's short term from when Alfie was last there. Like,
what's happened?
She didn't mention her son had died, which I thought was a bit curious. Like, no, I got a brother, but my son died.
My son died. Every cloud swings and roundabouts.
I mean, Alfie is kind of interweaving himself into Kat's life. Like he obviously his relationship with Bert and Ernie is very strong. They had that time in the park together. Tommy was a little bit more resilient against him when he first got there, and admitted that he admitted that he called Phil his dad because he knew it would hurt him, and it did hurt him, didn't he? He kind of narrowed. He blinked as if you're like how you meant to blink at cats to show that you love them. It was very slow, kind of like a blink. Which I thought was very odd and a strange thing that I found to see. But Tommy and Alfie had that lovely conversation.
Does this to his cat all day long.
I do. I literally sit there.
Just sits in his living room, doesn't talk to Ben, just sits there doing this with his cat. Like,
I'm between jobs right at the moment. I'm between jobs at the moment, and all I'm doing is sitting in the. I'm starting a new job next week. I've had time, and I've just sat there, just staring at the cat. Yeah, I'm just telling him things. Get out. Tommy and Alfie had that lovely conversation because Tommy said that, he's felt like he's not as loved as Bert and Ernie. He feels like he's kind of like being pushed to one side. And Alfie said, no, you're my son as well. I would never, ever do that to you. And it kind of built the bridge, didn't it, between Alfie and Tommy? So do you think that with Tommy's help as well, that he's going to somehow persuade Kat into kind of like getting rid of Phil?
Well, I don't know, because I thought it was quite interesting in that dynamic of Tommy wanting Phil as a father figure more than he did Alfie. I was quite enjoying that idea because I could sort of see, because Phil has been there for Tommy quite a lot over the past few months, and genuinely,
but that's dangerous.
Well, it is dangerous
because as soon as Phil gets close to another man,
I know that
they die or become really bad.
I know that. You know that. The kid doesn't know that.
Tommy's stabbed already. He's on that road. We need to stop this now.
He's not even a teenager yet, and he stabbed somebody.
I know.
But I quite liked that dynamic. It would have been interesting to sort of see the war for Tommy between Phil and Alfie. I would have quite liked that because finally in Phil's life is a boy that doesn't mind kicking a football around. It's all Phil's ever wanted in a child. And now he's finally got one. I would have been interested to sort of see that. But it seems like Tommy is kind of quite easily going to go back to Teen Alfie, which I think is a shame because I would have liked that dynamic.
No. I mean, for me, he's got Raymond, old Phil. He seems to have forgotten about. Exactly. After you put all those Spider Ray and Super Ray and Bat Ray on the bloody taxi cab.
I've heard word of his child for about a year now, haven't we?
Now he doesn't seem to give a damn about Ray.
This is why. A year ago. This is a silly idea to make characters pregnant all the time because you end up forgetting about the kid. Don't do it.
Well, this is it. Who is it? Was it?
You can't remember.
No, a couple of weeks ago, didn't we say that we thought that maybe Kat said that she couldn't fit into her dress?
You said this to me off camera. Yeah.
Was this off camera?
Yeah, you text me it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we talked about this off the show.
Yes, we did. Sometimes that does happen. Me and Alex only talk about EastEnders off camera, on camera. It's the only thing we do. And Alex kind of mentioned a line that Kat said where she was struggling to get into her dress, and Alex immediately jumped on that and thought that means that Kat's now pregnant. It's possible.
Is it out the realms of possibility?
It's not out the realms of possibility at all. Phil in his super sperm. Anything can happen. He can make that sperm
best in bed.
Teflon. Exactly. So, do you think Kat's pregnant? Where do you think, faithful viewer and listener? Where do you think the storyline is going? How long do you think it's going to take Alfie to get back with Kat? How long do you think it's going to take Sharon to get back with Phil? Where do you think it's all going? Let us know in the comment section below or by any of our social media outlets, which we shall give you at the end of the show.
So there's no need to spin the wheel this time, Rob, because we know the final story. That's it. I would spin. We could pretend we spin it. Here we go. Ooh, what could it be? Oh, there is Dotty's story. So we're talking about Dotty, who who's hurt Vinny for the final time. It looks like because he has chucked her out after she slept with Finley. Finley seemed a little bit too like kind of smug and over defensive of the fact that Vinny was quite upset, which really made me not like Finley very much. I have to say, it was a little twinge to me. It was like
a bit more of an arsehole than he had any right to be. I thought young Finley, but it was. We'll keep an eye on Mr. Finley. See what we get from him in the future. But the thing is that I don't know if I got that much investment in him and Dotty, because clearly there's something going with him and Whitney in the background as well. Like him and Whitney had immediate chemistry.
This is when I love Finley again, because as soon as you hear
Whitney immediately.
You're like,
you
danger.
Poor man, your life's doomed. Yes. So also with Dotty this week. Okay, it's been 9 months since we discovered apparently that Rocky is Dotty's father, and then barely a mention for 9 months, and then all of a sudden we've started going back to it randomly this week. I was literally starting to wonder whether they were just going to hope we'd forgotten about it.
Well, do you know why I think they've reminded us about it, including her looking at her mobile phone? Well, but also looking at her phone, looking at pictures of Nick Cotton on her phone, because I smell a retcon coming along, and I smell a mistake being changed, and it'll be the last thing I think of the Sen era that will be finally resurrected and put into place, so the roads are nice and calm again, and Crenshaw can do what he wants to do on the show, and also Dot's funeral.
So you think they just? I'm genuinely kind of convinced that Sandy's going to turn up at the funeral and go, "I was leathered Christmas Day. Don't pay a word of attention to anything I said. I do apologise." It just seems quite easy to do, doesn't it? Because it seems like if you're going to have Dot's funeral, we're going to have a very kind of focus on Dot. And by the way, after the week that we had last week with the flashback episode and the way that the Clenners is sort of righting the ship again, I have every faith that the Dot episode is going to be spectacular.
It's going to be fantastic.
Every faith. I can't wait for it.
Hour long, please.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get that. That's not him. That's not up to him, sadly, isn't it? It's up to the
and
schedule.
Bring back loads of cast as well, please. Also, bring back loads of cast.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, so there is that. So we'll kind of see where that goes. Because there was a little moment between Dotty and Rocky this week where, Rocky was sort of trying to give advice, and they had a moment of kind of comfort between one another. So they are starting to pull on that thread again. So we'll see where it goes in the coming weeks. But yeah, Dotty and Vinny. Now, let's be fair, it's not a relationship we've ever been convinced by, and I don't think we were really meant to be convinced by it at any point, because Dotty has never ever been able to turn around to Vinny and say, "I love you." I'm not entirely convinced they've had that much sex since they first had grief sex on the sofa all those months back.
But Dotty,
I think they even share a room. I don't think Suki was that keen on the idea of them sharing a room. So at the end of the day, an absolute farce of a relationship. No real surprise that Dotty cheated on Vinny this week with Finley. Now, it was all very unfair, I think. Vinny, I think, is starting to pull a few little threads from his mother in terms of the controlling side. I feel like he was trying to kind of keep Dotty under a little bit of control this week. So maybe that might be interesting to explore in later weeks. But ultimately, Dotty treated Finley with not a huge amount of respect. Was flirting quite openly with Finley, I thought, when Vinny was there. Seemed outraged when Vinny, kind of encouraged by Kim, punched Finley right in the face, which he deserved. And then the most positive, and then slept with Finley at the end of the night. Now the most positive. Slept with Vinny. Who he wishes.
Here we go. We're going to have some fan sites coming now. Vinny and Finley. Vinley.
The most exciting thing you can really pull from this is the fact that Dotty was at least had the nerve to be honest with him straight off the bat and say, "I cheated on you last night. I'm sorry about that." That's
totally Dotty. To be fair to Dotty, Dotty's, if anything,
faces up to her mistakes.
She does face up to them, and she's actually very honest.
Yeah,
which is strange for a Cotton.
Not with herself.
She's got to love herself.
Honestly, with everybody else, but not with herself. Yeah.
I also did love the fact that they remembered that when Dotty was first introduced to the show, that she actually had an apprenticeship becoming a mechanic, and she fixed the car.
Yes.
And I thought, wow. So, which Ian Bill mucked up for her, but so I thought that was mad. But I mean, my heart bleeds for Vinny because, and I think
it's quite sad.
And
what I love though was a reversal of the fact that normally when someone cheats, you normally have the woman kind of like throwing everything out the window and going against scissors and all that kind of thing. Vinny did it. Vinny's chucked all Dotty's belongings out in the street. Sort of looking at her furiously through a curtain and then just going behind the curtain again. So Vinny's kind of, and then went to go and make a cake or something, I assume. Bless him.
Wow.
So where does Dotty go from here? I have to say, and it's sad for me to say, I like Dotty. I really do like Dotty, and I like the actress. I think Dotty is played very well, and she could be a great character. But I'm sort of starting to wonder if is there much point to Dotty being around at the moment anymore?
Is there a place for Dotty right now?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is there a place for Dotty?
Sadly, no, there is no place for Dotty. I mean, what if my guess is right, and they do kind of
eventually leave at the funeral?
They reverse the whole, Rocky's your dad, and they actually go back to the original that Nick was her dad and is her dad. I think she'll have a revelation at Dot's funeral. Maybe Sonia will kind of be like, here, have some of the multi-million pounds that I now have inherited from 3 different people, and then kind of let Dotty kind of go away.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Sonia does still have all of Dotty's money, doesn't she?
She has all of Dot's money, including the money that Dot had inherited from Dr. Legg. She has the money that she inherited from the guy who she cared for at the hospital. She's got quite a lot of money, old Sonia. You think she'd be out that square quicker than you can say?
You would think. I sure as hell would be under a cover at midnight. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, like I say, I like Dotty, and I suppose the way to keep her around would be for Rocky to be her dad, because then that relationship kind of keeps going. Because otherwise, as well, you're looking at Rocky and sort of thinking, if him and Shane Ritchie share a scene, the world will implode, because they're kind of quite similar type of characters, aren't they? So you've kind of got to find a purpose for Rocky as well. So maybe they are going to be each other's purposes. I don't know.
I guess, but poor Rocky, he's kind of like, he came into the show thinking that pretending that he was Sonia's dad, wasn't Sonia's dad, but wanted a relationship with Sonia, but Sonia didn't really want one. Now, then thinks that he's Dotty's dad, wants a relationship with Dotty. If we then find out that Dotty died, so that's 2 children that Rocky's lost in the space of being on the show.
Without them ever being his children.
Without ever being his children. So I would prefer, I'll be honest, I would prefer if Dotty was Nick Cotton's daughter, because then there's that bloodline still in the show. It's just...
Let us know in the comment section below what you think the future of Dotty and Rocky is. Is there a future? We're not slagging them off. We like them as characters, but do they still have a purpose within the show? Let us know in the comment section below, or by any of the following social media outlets. We will return next week with I Ain't One to Gossip, so please do send us your emails. It's been a long old show. We've enjoyed it. We are back. Hooray, hurrah, hooroo. And you can now get involved by doing the following. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications about the spoiler videos. And you can listen to us on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast sites. You can email us at robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. Oh,
my throat hurts.
I knew you didn't even have to do that. And we're back. We're back.
We're back. Yes, we're back. We are.
And we are. And we've missed you terribly. And that was a good load of fun. The show is in a good place right now, I think. It's in a really strong position. It's mad to think how much the quality has climbed in just a matter of a couple of months. So I can't wait for the run-up to Christmas, because now the storylines are going to really start kicking up into gear. It's going to be very exciting. I cannot wait.
No, I mean, this is now the true period of the Christmas storyline, so we should be now looking into that. So I'm presuming perhaps maybe Kat and Phil's story and Alfie and Sharon is going to kind of lead itself into that as well. Well, the Panasaur's gone a bit quiet, haven't they? So, I've got a feeling that now it's going to kind of be taken off the burner a little bit, just so other stories can simmer up to Christmas. There's so much,
isn't there? There's so much to cover.
Yeah. There is a lot of stories.
Mick's exit, Janine's reveal,
Billy as well.
Billy, the Panasars, and Lola at some point is going to have to start having some headaches. So
I know that's coming up. I mean, at least that theory's kind of come into fruition for me, because a lot of people said, "Oh no, Lola's story she's going to come." I
thought it would. Yeah, I thought it'd be done by the end of the year.
I reckon pregnant Lola, preggers Lola. I tell you, on her deathbed, giving birth to children while dying. That's what's going to happen. I can't wait.
Ho ho ho! And a partridge in a pear tree. Cannot wait. All right, guys, we shall see you same time next week. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye for myself. Have a lovely, safe weekend. Take care to you all. Bye.
Goodbye.